Vlog on a blog. Tomorrow's news today. Get to the truth. Listen, learn, live. Visit us at yadayah.com.
Oh my, we've had a busy week on co-hosts on the Vlog on the Vlog. Good to have you again here, Roger. You're making great progress with your own show. Thank you for that contribution. Wonderful to have you participating. Boy, it's been an amazing period of time, hasn't it? We come out with this wild conclusion based upon what the prophet said, and they were so clear it was impossible to deny them, that we were entering the time of trouble, and that the president of the United States was Satan incarnate, the worst man who will ever live. And oh my goodness, has it turned out that way?
Yeah, it's moving right along.
Moving right along, man. It is for certain. Here's a picture of people that are walking down the street of New York, and this person who posts this, and he takes a Jewish name and he calls himself a Jew, and then he says New York is unsafe for Israeli and Jews. There's a travel warning in place. New York proudly stands with Palestine, which of course doesn't even exist. So this idiot is either a Marxist or a Muslim, because they are among those who don't understand that Palestine was nothing but an ethnic slur. There are no Palestinians. There's no place called Palestine. And anybody that promotes either of those two is just an ignoramus. And the people that are parading under that name are savages. And their religion has been savage for 1,400 years. Under the name of their God, Allah, they have murdered 250 million people. They treat women as slaves. They're on a worldwide quest for genocide. Every country they have conquered, and there's 57 of them that are remaining under their colonial rule, have to live under apartheid conditions where non-Muslims have no rights. And you've got this person proudly advocating on behalf of those terrorists, not even knowing that the people and place called Palestine have never existed.
Yeah, they need
and
to
they
give
want
tours.
to label the Jews as the terrorists, as opposed to those who have not only perpetrated 99% of the terrorist acts over the last 1,400 years, but those who terrorized Israel as recently as 10/7 of 23. And so they want to punish the Jews in New York. By the way, the population of New York, I think, is almost 15% Jewish.
Yeah. Wow.
We urge Zionists to evacuate New York City. So I've just got a newsflash. If you're anti-Zion, if you're anti-Jew, if you're going to speak on behalf of Marxism or Muslims, you have exactly 7 years left to vomit and drool. And it'll be over for you. So keep it up. You've got 7 years. Mark your calendars. I'm not kidding here. You've got 7 years and you're done. We won't ask any questions. We're not going to have a debate. We're not going to discuss the issue. We're not going to review your account. We're not going to futz with your algorithms. You're just going to be gone. You will never drool again, ever.
One swipe.
Get your vomit out now, pal.
Yeah. They found their rallying cry, and they're rallying around it. And it's been successful for them up to this point, but it's going to come a point where it's going to lose its luster really fast.
Yeah, it hasn't been really successful for them, but it has been a means to use propaganda. Propaganda is the repetition of a lie and then draping that lie in themes that appeal to people. And that's what they're doing here. So it is to take an outright lie and make it appear credible by dropping in other terms that people are aware of and then repeating it ad nauseum. And unfortunately, if you do not refute such lies, they grow into become monsters. Sometimes people get frustrated with me because, there's this mother goddess cult that is gains what little popularity they have by playing off my translations and my name and hashtagging my name. And they say, it's a group of 30 or 40 people. Why do you even give a crap about them? It's because if you don't refute those things that are outright lies, your credibility will ultimately deteriorate. And by not being uniform and unified in opposing the lie of Palestinian and Palestine, Israel is now slathered by this lie. And by doing such a horrible job of presenting what Muslims did to them on 27 of 23, Israel lost the war of public opinion, and it's devastating for them. But all that said, I would not call it a victory, because those who are promoting this propaganda are 7 years from their doom. And all of them, I mean, every anti-Semite on earth, every Marxist, every MAGA, every Twistian, every Muslim will be gone. God does not like you at all, and you will be gone. So, have your giggles now. The vomit's on you.
Yeah, and the drool part is really right, because these people just don't know. I was going to say they should give tours of Gaza. You want to see what your so-called Palestinians are like? These are the people, this is the religion, these are the people that you're supporting, okay, through your nonsense. Why don't you take a walk through a neighborhood? You won't last 30 seconds if you're not raped, enslaved, or murdered. I mean, that's what they do.
Just go to yadayah.com. You don't even have to read, which I know is just not popular amongst Gen Z. The books will talk to you. And there are 5 volumes of Goddamn Religion. They are irrefutable. They present Islam as it is. In Muhammad's words and Allah's words, it is absolutely irrefutable, meticulously documented. And shed your ignorance so that you know what you're allied against. Because right now, this merger between Marxists and Muslims is making people really moronic.
And where are 15% of 10 million people going to go? Evacuate New York. Where do they go? Well, I mean,
it's the same thing that would happen to Nazi Germany when they rounded up the Jews. They had really nothing left that was inventive, industrious. I mean, they destroyed their culture by scapegoating the people who were probably the most productive. And they'd be doing the same thing in New York City. I know that's not true with the Haredi. There's a fair number of Haredi in New York City, and they're nothing but parasites. So, but apart from them.
Well, I think quite a few of them have been migrating down to Florida.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, and they're going to understand. They're going to understand why Israel needs to exist as well, because there will. Well,
the Haredi probably will not understand anything.
No,
and I have no hope. They're poorly educated. They're highly indoctrinated. They are parasitic. They are so religious that evidence and reason will mean nothing. So I don't think in fact, I am certain that the Haredim are never going to understand anything. No chance of that. But then, nor are the avid Marxists, the kind of person who would post something like this. They're never going to process evidence and reason either. And nor is the Muslim who would eat this stuff up. They evidence and reason will mean nothing to them. They're motivated by their faith in things that aren't true, but nonetheless motivated by them. All right. So Alexander Duncan wants to say this is accurate. Of the Democrats, that there's really a question as to who was a Democrat and during the Civil War. It's true that the party name that Lincoln ran under was closest to the Republican, but the parties didn't represent the same things they represent today. So that's really fairly untrue. In the 1870s, it was actually much later than that with the Ku Klux Klan. The only reason that you would associate that with the Democrat Party is that it was the right-wing religious hate mongers in the South, and in the South, the more conservative people were Democrats for most of the 20th century, anyway, and to the even till fairly recently. So today, the mindset that is closest to the KKK would be MAGAs, not actually Democrats, and the mindset that'd be closest to the Confederates of states' rights and that sort of thing would also be the MAGA Republicans. So it's just an inversion of reality. I don't know what the 1950s is, but maybe that's somebody who was a dropout from society. I like the hat backwards, so that fits one of my agendas. It is true that the 1970s brought in the hippie movement, and while sex, drugs, and rock and roll were prominent, they were right about getting out of the war in Vietnam. So we have to give them credit for that. It is true that Democrats became actually the wealthiest party in the early 2000s. When you look at the size of the average donation and the income and wealth of the average person, the Republican Party became a working class party, and the Democrat Party became the party of the oligarchs and the richest people. There was a complete flop in the early 2000s. And to present them as cross-dressers now, transvestites, certainly they promote all manner of gender strangeness, and they clearly are now promoting Muslim candidates. What the Democrat Party has become is communist. It's Marxist. 65% of Democrats now identify as Marxist. So it is a Marxist party, which means it's a moronic party, because Marxism is the economic strategy and the political strategy of people who are selfish, greedy, and unproductive, and can't accomplish anything, haven't ever accomplished anything, and demand that those who have been productive forfeit what they have earned to appease those who think they deserve something for having done nothing. It has never worked, and it is counterproductive. It destroys all freedoms, destroys all productivity. It destroys the quality of life. There is nothing to distribute in a socialist country. It has never performed anywhere, and it has always been a disaster. And if you want to know how big a disaster your Marxist plan is, look what happened in Russia becoming the Soviet Union, where 80 million people died. The first 20 or 30 years, 80 million people. And then you look at China and the transition from Chiang Kai-shek to Mao Zedong. Another 50, 60 million people starved to death.
Starved.
Yes. Look at North Korea and South Korea if you need a perspective on this. And I know there's morons out there that want to say, well, look at China. It's a communist country. It's a communist government over free enterprise economics. China didn't grow economically to the engine of the world until they started to replicate the enterprise zones back 20 some odd years ago. And it is by doing what America once did, which was sponsoring and supporting free enterprise, that China has grown into a powerhouse, and America has socialized it such that it's essentially impossible to build anything of consequence in America anymore. So we've simply flipped roles. But this transition, and the reason I decided to talk about this, is that with Democrats now almost universally nominating Marxists, socialists, communists, and many complete hypocrites, which would be a Marxist Muslim, they have no chance of reversing the damage of MAGA. None.
Yeah.
And the reason I say none is that, 2/3 of the Democrat Party is Marxist. That's why you're nominating Marxists. And you're too stupid to understand that Islam is a death cult. So, but to be a Marxist, you have to be stupid anyway. So you're not going to appeal to anyone with a brain, to anybody that's ever worked for a living, to anyone that's actually paying the bills in America, that's actually employing somebody, that's building something. You will appeal to exactly zero of them. And so you can't win a national election. You can win an election of places where the majority of the people are as stupid as you are. And you can go ahead and ruin those areas. Mm-hmm. Look what happened to Detroit. Yeah. But that's all you can do. And this was a time when Democrats had a layup hand, a guaranteed win. And they went and blew it all by doing nothing but nominating Marxists and Muslims. Not going to work.
No.
But just look how stupid that last two images were. You've got the transvestite and the Muslim and the burqa side by side. That, my friends, tells you the hypocrisy of Marxist Muslim. You know, this popularity now of the two candidates who have recently won that are Marxist Muslims. That just shows you how utterly incompatible these two things are, such that the only way you could be a Marxist Muslim is to have your head up your tuchus.
Yeah, they will throw them off of buildings. I don't understand how you could partner with people like that.
With very few exceptions, the ideologies are the antithesis of one another. Mm-hmm. The only thing that they have in common is they're tyrannical and they disallow freedom. I guess the other is that Muslims don't work. They steal money from others, is how they have always managed to survive. And so do Marxists. So they're totalitarian in nature, deprivation of freedoms, and counter to economic prosperity. They have those things in common, but the way they treat women, elections, freedom of choice, education, all those kinds of things, they're night and day. They're opposites.
I would have
essentially said agnostic and atheist versus a God that is modeled after Satan.
I would have said 20 years ago, 15 years ago, that I thought that Islam and Christianity, that MAGA, before it was MAGA, but this right-wing ideology would have melded together somehow for some sort of uber religion or something. You know what I'm saying? Just because we be against this insanity that the Marxists bring, where everything is okay. You know?
No. Christians are as deceived as are Muslims. So I'll give you that. Allah never existed and Jesus never existed. They're both piles of lies, and the lies are similar in that they claim their legitimacy by trying to claim all of the creativity and prophecies of the God of the Torah and prophets, and yet they misquote and misrepresent them in every single occasion without exception. So they're conceived in exactly the same manner. But the religions are fundamentally different in the sense that Islam exists as a death cult to kill everybody, and Christianity exists as a death cult only to kill Jews. And demean Jews. So they have anti-Semitism in common, but that the enemy of the Christian is the Jew, and while the enemy of the Muslim is the Jew, the enemy of the Muslim is also the world. And the wars of conquest for essentially 1,000 years by Muslims against Christians I think is enough to draw a bloody line in the sand and said, you killed 200 million of us. We're not going to be buddies. There was a pastor
the Pope
that was
doesn't
promoting.
agree with you.
The
Pope
there was a
is
pastor that's
putting
going to
his
say, I'm
hand
going to
out.
promote, Chris Lom. And of course, no, it's unbelievably stupid. And you've got the Pope right now that is promoting a unification, which is, it just shows he's as dumb as a stone too.
Mm-hmm.
He's no smarter than the Easter bunny he has nailed to his bent cross. Now, as it relates to socialism, the socialism was part of what of Hitler's whole scheme. He was the National German Socialist Workers' Party. He only became known as a fascist when he needed to present Stalin and the Russians as his enemy because he wanted to conquer the world. And, when you're a guy like Hitler or Trump, you can't have a rival. And so he needed to find a way to demean them. And so since they were communists, he didn't want to be known as a socialist anymore. And he liked Mussolini's sleight of hand, where Mussolini was also a socialist, but came up with the idea of a fascist and had really snappy uniforms and the like. And Hitler says, yeah, that fits my agenda too. So, but it doesn't change the fact that socialism and fascism are the same thing under different names, exactly the same thing under different names. And that the first merger of socialists and Muslims took place in 1941, towards the end of the year in Berlin, when the Grand Ayatollah, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem met with Adolf Hitler. And the purpose of the meeting was to discourage Hitler from exiling Jews, which after he robbed them, he wanted to exile them. And the Grand Mufti wanted them exterminated. And he convinced Hitler to exterminate them. And it was immediately after that, 2 months later, that the SS met and they came up with their final solution. And they began to turn the work camps into death camps. And so there's been a deadly merger of Islam and socialism now that goes back just shy of 100 years. Mm-hmm. And it has never changed. When the Muslim Brotherhood wanted to create the PLO, they did so with funding from and support of the KGB. So this has been a long-running relationship, a merger between Muslims and Marxists. So it's been in the offing for a very long time. It's been very destructive, highly deadly. And the reason it's so debilitating now is that while up to this point, Islam has been the single deadliest thing humans have ever conceived, having murdered 250 million people. Marxists have surpassed them, not in overall quantity, but in the last century, Muslims are murdering just millions, and the Marxists have killed nearly 200 million people over that period of time in their wars and starvation and all this sort of thing. So you're now taking the two deadliest constructs in human history and merging them together. It's actually far deadlier than MAGA, and maybe of equal just demise, deceit, destruction, death count to what Trump is going to perpetrate as Satan incarnate. So these are the two primary forces in today's world that are at play, and they're disastrous. And one of the things that's just so sad is that there is a very significant percentage of Jews who are Marxists, and a very significant number of Jews who support Muslims.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be deadly. And then there's a very significant percentage of Jews who are parasites who hate Israel. So Israel's survival under all of this is, it's dim.
Well, you don't even have to look very close to see why why Yahowah is so dead set against those things, and why we're required to walk away from them before we can have a relationship.
Politics and religion, conspiracy, militarism. God says, you choose to be part of those things, you're never going to have a relationship with me. And now we're reaching a time where 7 years from now, if you cling to militarism, patriotism, conspiracy, religion, or politics, you've got a maximum of 7 years to live. All right, so this particular post is this Mandami. He is talking about the what's going on with Trump. So the host of this program, I guess, is Rick Sanchez or someone posting for him, is saying, is it possible to negotiate with the U.S. right now? Iran is on record saying that when Trump this past weekend and said that he's not bombing Iran anymore because they're very close to a deal, and that he was big deal had been reached. There are just a couple of points to be resolved. They're going to all be resolved on Monday. Yep, we're meeting on Monday. And the Iranians are saying, no, we have not sent a delegation to the U.S. or to any other country to meet with the United States. And no, the U.S. hasn't sent a delegation to any other country to meet with us. And we're not negotiating with the U.S. again until they honor the terms of the memorandum of understanding that they signed. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. And so in this particular interview, the scholar is saying, just laughing. He says, no, there's no one in Iran thinks it's even worth the breath to negotiate with Trump. We used to be the guys that said, you don't want to negotiate with anybody at any time. We're always prepared, always willing. And right now we're saying, why bother? Because Trump can't keep his word. He can't keep his word one sentence to the next. He can't keep his word one tweet to the next. He can't keep his word when he signs a document claiming I'm going to do this. And then, he's got the whole Trump tush talker regime that rallies around him and doesn't hold him accountable. So this is just another Iranian spokesperson saying, no, we know better than try to negotiate with Trump, because if you cut a deal with Trump, he won't honor it. What's the point? But, that's the whole nature of Islam, too. Read the 9th Surah. Mm-hmm. The 9th Surah says any treaty between a Muslim and non-Muslim is not binding on the Muslim. That's just no point. You've got the devil arguing with Satan here. And so
right.
Who's going to cheat who? The devil or Satan? Or both?
Yeah. The one that wants to lie is going to lie all the time, and the one that can't remember what he was lying about last time. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's his own false reality.
You have Satan negotiating with the devil here, and people are wondering why there's no agreement.
Trump's he's like a one-trick pony. That's all he can do. Oh, we got a deal. We got a deal. No, we ain't got a deal. Yeah, we got a deal every day. You'll read the news stories every day. Trump says we got a deal.
Yesterday morning, he was bragging that the Strait of Hormuz is now open, and then in the evening, he said they better damn open it, or I'm going to decapitate. Oh my God! No. And the fact is that Islam. Quran is based upon satanic dribble. And it does say that a treaty between Muslims and non-Muslims is not binding on the Muslim, and that Islam is a death cult, and it always has been. And the proof is throughout the Quran, and go read Goddamn Religion. I prove it 1,000 times over. But the fact is that they're negotiating with a man who's the living incarnation of Satan. So you're not going to have a negotiated solution. This was the dumbest thing ever to do, was to go and attack Iran a second time. Oh boy! So here's a little clip. AIPAC, they're having a meltdown at AIPAC. Chaos erupts at AIPAC as the staff realizes paying millions for puppet campaigns no longer works. I don't know what a puppet campaign is, but I guess they assume that whoever they fund is going to be their little puppet. AIPAC is not in the top 10 influencers in America. It put every Jewish lobbyists together, and they're not in the top 10 in America. Nobody bothers to criticize any of those that are in the top 10, and they make it all about this one country who is not in the top 10 only for one reason. They're anti-Semitic. They hate Jews. It's the oldest conspiracy going. It's a conspiracy that was born in the religion of Christianity when they came up with the conspiracy that Jews killed their God. Now, pretty stupid conspiracy, but religious people aren't very bright. So here's the meltdown, and it's a cute little clip you can play.
Call Erica Kirk! Bibi is gonna kill us!
Okay, so there you go. Of course, there's lots of things that are wrong. The AIPAC does not use the six-pointed star as their symbol. The AIPAC is an exceedingly liberal organization, and not a whole lot of kippah-wearing religious Jews that are part of the organization. And they aren't that nearly as influential as they have been portrayed. But since the morons that run as Marxist Muslims are able to convince people to vote based upon don't vote for somebody that takes money from AIPAC and vote for me because I don't take money from AIPAC, and that's the rallying cry, and they take money from, well, the Muslim Brotherhood or some other organization. The simplest solution of all is for Israel to realize it has lost. There is no purpose of any Jew funding AIPAC or any other lobbyist organization. It's all being used against them anyway. Just pull out. Stop it. Don't spend another dime. Yeah. You lost.
I remember
you got played, you lost, and there's no reason to send good money after bad. Because now, rather than you're not getting results by the money you're spending, it is destroying you because the other candidates are saying, took money from AIPAC, you need to vote against them. And so the very money you're donating is working against you. It's counterproductive. It's like destroying Gaza. It is counterproductive. You're not making yourself safer. You're not winning friends. You're alienating people. Stop it. It's over. Stop funding all political activities, Israel and Jews. You're making matters worse.
Yeah. I remember when the news used to talk about the war chest, and this was going to be the most expensive campaign, presidential campaign in history. And I think that was like 2016 when it was going to be $1 billion between who had the race to $1 billion between Trump and Hillary first time around, right? How much money did Elon donate this time, and to who?
300 million, one person.
A third of $1 billion. Yeah. So what kind of
and
access
only
does that buy?
And only in 7 states and only over a month's period of time.
A month? Yeah.
A month's period of time in 7 states. 300 million.
PACs are one of the
And it cost him a lot more than that because he bought Twitter and turned Twitter into a Trump tush-talking platform.
Yeah, it was a $50 million deal, wasn't it? That was something, or maybe that was
42, 43, 44 billion, something of that range. And of course, he got Saudi and Kuwaiti and Qatari money to do it. Yay, America.
Well, you could say, I guess, that, political action committees have become one of the most successful grifts of all time.
They have.
It's like the big con.
It is. Yeah. American politics, it's probably true for European politics too, but it's all a con. It's all a con. America is not a democracy. You are not voting for any legislation in your government. It is not a democracy. The founding fathers were opposed to democracy. It is a republic, but it's a republic in which everyone can vote. And 99.99% of people are not qualified to vote. And so it's a country run by the dumbest among us. And that's what we're witnessing. We are witnessing a country run by the dumbest among us. God is very clear. He says, people have the potential of good and bad, but when people congregate together, they're always bad. When you pretend that you're a democracy and you say the most popular person is empowered, that is going to be the worst person, according to God's definition. And he's always right. So all we've ever had in America is two parties that they decide among them who they want to be voted for. And what you end up with on the national level is doesn't matter who's in the White House. Nothing changes. Nothing. So it's all an illusion. It's a film that is being played over reality. It's like you put down a veil between the voter and reality, and you're playing the movie The Wizard of Oz on that screen, and they don't notice what's happening behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happened in America.
And it's always been that way. I read historical accounts of how candidates would go into the public houses in Boston and the large cities and stuff, and they would buy rounds of beer, get the voting populace drunk, and then send them off to vote. Right. And who they're going to vote for. I mean, it's
the only practicality, and I've spoken of this before, and I'm not trying to advocate it now because it's too late. We only have 7 years left, and you're not going to resolve any of this. But the only kind of public voting that has any chance of success is an oligarchy. And of course, the Marxists are opposed to oligarchies, even though they are the ultimate oligarchy, and that in a Marxist system, only the Communist Party gets to vote. So they limit the number of people that get to vote, and you only get to vote if you agree with them. But in an oligarchy, the people that vote are the people that have skin in the game, the people who have produced and are productive in that society, and they decide how the funds are used, or whether a country goes to war, where it spends its money, or where it doesn't spend its money. And that is the only chance you have of a democratic system having any chance of success. Otherwise, it's the majority trying to steal from the minority who are productive until the productive are finally saying, it's enough already. It's not worth it. And then there's no productivity at all.
Well, it seems like it's the nature of man. I watched a documentary once where they found evidence of that very thing in ancient Greece, where where the jar where they stuffed the little shards that you voted for somebody, that was stuffed. The same hand wrote a bunch of the names. So
yeah, of course.
It goes way back.
It goes way back. Yeah. Yeah. Then the number of people who are properly informed to make an intelligent decision, if you want to get to just on things like economics, understanding the difference between free enterprise and Marxism, you probably have tiny fraction of 1/10 of 1% of the population in terms of understanding world history and the things that have gotten us into this mess, so that you can keep from replicating the same mistake. It's probably also 1/10 of 1%. In terms of doing enough research to know the difference between the candidates that you're voting for, it's also probably 1/10 of 1%. And so 99.9% of the votes are actually counterproductive. There you go. All right. So here we have a big blow to Netanyahu. And Netanyahu said, Jerusalem has always been the capital of Israel. Well, not really always been the capital of Israel. That's really not true. When Yahowah used the naming convention of Yisrael, the capital of Yisrael was Jacob, the person that he, or collectively they decided would be renamed Yisrael. But it was nothing but a naming convention. At that point, it wasn't a nation. At that point, it wasn't didn't have discrete boundaries. It was the potential to be the land that God had given his 12 sons, and so it is. It was a naming convention then. didn't actually become a nation. It was the naming convention for a group of people under the domain of the Towrah and instructed by the Shafat judges until Israel decided that they would be Democrats. And they voted for Shaul, who was opposed to the Towrah and who thought he was more important than Yahowah, and became demon-possessed and got his head literally handed to him. And that's when they made that transition, and it turned out very poorly for them. God said, they've essentially rejected me. But that is when there became a kingdom or a nation of Israel. And at the time, there was no Jerusalem. Oh, well, Jerusalem was a Jebusi city. It wasn't until Shaul was dead and Dowd captured Jerusalem that it became it didn't use the term capital, but it became the principal city of Yahowah, which was the core of most beloved part of Israel from God's perspective. And while that was true in terms of Jerusalem, which means the source from which instruction regarding reconciliation flows, was the home of Dowd and therefore the center of Yahowah, which means beloved of Yah. Yisrael would only exist one generation past Dowd. So you can't say that it was always the capital of Yisrael, because Yisrael didn't exist within, less than 100 years of Dowd. It no longer existed. There was the northern kingdom, and there was the kingdom of Yahowah, and they were at war with each other, which is something that Jews do quite a lot. So from that point until 1948, there was no Israel. The fact of the matter is there was no Israel. There was through 133, there was a province of Yahowah. It fell under the control of the Babylonians, fell under the control of the Greeks, fell under the control of the Romans, Imperial Romans, fell under the control of the Byzantines, fell under the control of the Muslims of Muhammad's madness, and then under the Ottomans. But there was no Israel. There was a Yehuda. So you have to be careful when you use your terms that you use them accurately. Now, as for Mr. MBS here, he really needs to crawl back in his hole. He's having a rough time. He's got nothing going for him right now. He's been pummeled on all sides, and all he has shown is complete and utter incompetence and weakness. He was on his game. He was the glad-hander of the world just 3 years ago. And in 3 years, he has fallen to a laughingstock. So I don't think he ought to be saying much of anything at the moment. And his comment was that Israel and Jerusalem is a city that is sacred to millions of Muslims, Christians, and Jews, and should be the city of peace and coexistence, not in conflict and forced realities. What a piece of shit. Muslims don't coexist with anyone. Never have, never will. And Christians blame Jews for killing their God. They do not coexist with Jews. They torment them. So you have the two religions that have done nothing but persecute, dehumanize, demean, slander, and massacre Jews. And this a-hole says that they should all coexist. What a piece of shit. Go back in your hole, MBS. You're a disgrace.
Yeah, coexist for them is just let me get close enough to stab you. I mean, that's what they mean by coexist. Let me get close enough to you that I can stab you.
Both these men are scum. Both of them. Okay. The more you push at Jews, the harder we push back. Not because we want to fight, because we remember what happens when we don't. All right. So, Jew. How'd you come up with that name? How'd you come up with that name? What's it based on? Please tell me. I want to know what a Jew is. What does it mean to be Jewish? Where'd you come up with that name? I mean, seriously, if you're going to remember, you ought to remember your name, right? But your name's not Jew. In fact, you're nothing as a Jew. You've got no association with anybody or any place or anything as a Jew. The first Jew existed sometime in the late 1700s. And best when they finally came to exist as Jews, there were damn near none of them in what is now Israel. They were all over Europe, and they were living in shuttles, ghettos. So there is no Jew. There were Yehud, but you didn't like that name because it has Yahweh and Dod's name in it. It means beloved of Yah. You didn't like being that. So you renounced your actual name, and you chose a different name. We're mocking J.D. Vance that's had 4 different names running away from his past. If you're going to go from Yisrael, which would define those who either engage and endure with God or those who are in conflict with the Almighty, if you're going to renounce that name, and then you're going to choose one of the 12 tribes, which is 1/12 of what you claim to represent, and you're going to choose that one, and then you're going to completely disavow it, so that you've got nothing left, so that you have eviscerated it, then who are you? How do you say that you remember when you don't even remember your own name? Who is we when you're parading around in a made-up moniker? I mean, serious. These are really serious questions.
They embraced the name from the people that want to kill them.
They do. It's just hideous what has happened to God's people. You've got no chance until you embrace what it means to be Yehudim again. And you're very, very far from that.
Well, I guess they don't know that there's no J in Hebrew.
No J in Hebrew. No. And
I remember.
Wah in Hebrew does not make an E sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember a time that they didn't fight. I remember a time when they threw all the crap, the religious crap out of Jerusalem, and they celebrated Pesach, Masim, Bakurim, and they didn't fight, and things worked out really well for them. Then they had their Hezekiah moment,
Yeah, they had their Hezekiah moment when they didn't push back. They let Yahweh defend them, and he removed 185,000 soldiers who were armed to the gillet to destroy them. And, the IDF, with all of its money and resources, could defeat 4,000 Muslims and tinny rompers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've come a long way. Down. All righty here. Here is a story. Boy, I tell you what, these. Can you imagine saying, "I want to grow up and look like that piece of shit"? There. This one, it says Israel's entire education system is in crisis, and the fastest growing community, the ultra-Orthodox, is getting by far the worst education of all. The inadequate education, it's not education, it's indoctrination, spells a non-competitive workforce, a weakened army, and a country that simply won't survive. I decided that, I better brush up on my timeline. And I better brush up on my numbers as well. I have said that the Haredi have come to represent essentially 20% of Jews in Israel. And somebody who is on their game may say that's not true. It is true, but they would say, no, they represent 14% of Israelis. Yeah, that's because a lot of Israelis aren't Jews. So if you're going there, and there are no Muslims that are part of the Haredi sect. So if you're going to look at the number of Jews in Israel that are Haredi, they are 20%. So my numbers are accurate. I have used the terms ultra-Orthodox and Haredi as if they were synonymous. 2 for 2, I'm right. They are synonymous. Jews don't like the term ultra-Orthodox because they think it means fanatical or something. Do you know what the word Haredi comes from and how they chose it?
Don't tell me it means ultra. The most.
No.
Okay.
No.
I don't.
It's used in the singular form and the plural form in one book. My buddy, Yada Yah. Hared and Haredi as the plural form uses the term. It means to tremble.
Okay, not.
Yep.
Not good.
Not good. No, it means to tremble. All right. So the question then would be, when did the present form of Judaism, as it is dominant in Israel, it's the dominant form in Israel, and it is the second most popular form in the United States. When did it emerge? Is it a religion that dates back all the way to the oral law and Moshe? Probably not, since there was no oral law, and that whole line of religious propaganda is so incredulous. It's a wonder that they even repeat it. No, the Talmud is not Torah, and the Talmud, the really crappy Talmud, which is the Yerushalmi, was started in the late first and then augmented in the second century CE by the clowns associated by Rabbi Akiba, who was the one that brought in the false Messiah Bar Kokhba and ended up creating the diaspora. Not very smart, and it's a really incomplete and essentially worthless book. When they were in exile, and it was the Assyrians that exiled Israelites, and then the Babylonians that exiled Yehudim, many stayed. And when they stayed around Babylon, they, in the 4th and 5th up to the beginning of the 6th century CE, they wrote to the Babylonian Talmud. So you'd say, all right, so is it date to that period? And no, the answer is no. Then you would go forward and say, all right, there was a sect of Judaism that emerged with Baal Shem Tov. Now, it's hard to ascribe much to Baal Shem Tov because Baal Shem Tov was, slightly more real than Jesus. He never wrote anything down, just like Jesus. So if you never wrote anything down, people can project anything they want on them. And what you find is that that sect really didn't evolve into what we would consider Haredi Judaism today. The truth is really depressing. You know, I have proven in the 5 volumes of Christianity that rabbis trained Paul, who was the first person actually to call himself a rabbi in writing. And they trained Paul how to misrepresent statements from God and to erase God's name and give the pretend God new names. It was the rabbis that taught Paul how to do those things. And it was the rabbis, when he did those things, who didn't counter him. And it was the rabbis who sold Talmud stories from that Babylonian Talmud to Muhammad to create the Quran, such that Islam is now their religion that haunts Jews, just as Christianity is the one that has created anti-Semitism and led to the Holocaust. Rabbis have been a mess for a very, very long time. But the strain that is known as the quaking ones, the trembling ones, it actually is a much more modern religion. In the late 19th century and the early 20th century, right around the time of the First World War, leading up to it and immediately after it, in Germany, a group of rabbis pushed back against what would have been phenomenal for them. During the Enlightenment period across Europe, as the yoke of Roman Catholicism was broken, the scholastic community decided that it was time to emancipate Jews from shtetls and ghettos and to include them in education and scholarship and in society as a whole. And so it was European liberals, Europeans who were not under the yoke of Roman Catholicism, that sought to reverse the trauma that Roman Catholicism had imposed on Jews. And they offered Jews the opportunity to be integrated into the upper levels of the societies. But it was a group of rabbis who opposed that. And they're the ones who created the Haredi religion. They decided that Jews could not be included in the Enlightenment of Europe, that they had to be isolated, and they needed to be controlled by rabbis, and they're the ones who created these mourning suits and all of these rituals. And they're the ones who made Jews an isolated community that was easy to hate. They brought the Holocaust on them. They isolated themselves. They had the opportunity to integrate, and the rabbis that created the Haredi sect said, no, we're going to control you. You're ours. That's what happened. So the Haredi religion was created in 1910 and 1920. And you know what happened in 1930 and 1940 in Germany? Do you think there's a correlation between those things? How's that for a sad story?
Wow.
The more you know about the rabbis, the more you know they're the greatest enemy of the Jewish people and have been for as long as there has been a rabbi.
They are definitely unabashedly self-serving and
Correct.
parasitic.
Correct.
To a degree.
Correct.
And most Jews are afraid of them, even the secular ones.
Yes, because the rabbis are Trumpian in their viciousness.
Mm-hmm.
They are foul, mean, nasty people. And if somebody leaves their cult, they will destroy them. Somebody speaks against their cult, they vomit all over them. This is an exceedingly nasty group of parasites.
Yeah, and what I see in this is just a money grab for schooling. I mean, it's the same thing the socialists try in the United States is, we need more money for schools, we need more money for schools. Well, these ultra-Orthodox are going to their yeshivas, schools. Yes. They're not going to schools that, right. So no matter how much money you give those crap schools, you get a...
Yeah, you're using the term incorrectly. It is a money grab for indoctrination into the cult. It is not a money grab for schools. A yeshiva is not a school. Mm-hmm. It's a indoctrination camp. That's what they did to Jews in the 1910s and 1920s, such that the Jews were rounded up in the 1930s and 1940s and exterminated. This is what they did. They did this to themselves. And this was Not the first time, it was the third time. The greatest enemy of the Jewish people is Judaism and rabbis.
Undoubtedly.
All right, there's a bunch of posts that are having the foreign minister of China say that China, Trump is bragging that, he talked to Xi personally, and Xi affirmed him very strongly that he had not and would not sell weapons to Iran. And so there's now a bunch of posts that are being repeated, which is how propaganda works, that have the foreign minister of China say, we said no such thing. We're going to do what we're going to do. We don't discuss such things. Now, the fact of the matter is that there is no affirmation that the discussion even took place. The minutes of the notes between Trump and Xi do not include any discussion of anything pertinent to Iran. Mm-hmm. So there is absolutely no verification of Trump's claim, and Trump lies like he wears a tie. And China has two exceedingly important allies in Russia and Ukraine, Russia and Iran, and they're not in a position where they can look the other way and let America destroy Iran, or America destroy Russia either. Be devastating to China and to the security of the Chinese people to have America destroy either of those two nations. And so they have to act, and they should act to protect their ally. So the problem here is that China Times lies a lot. And, there is a point that you can go, that there is no verification for what Trump claims. There's all evidence is to the contrary, that Iranian missiles are now being guided by Chinese technology. But the fact of the matter is you don't need to go and pretend that there is some statement that you can put in quotes when that statement was never made.
And to what end? I don't understand with this lying for lying's sake. I mean, because it doesn't change the reality of what happens between Iran, China, United States at all. I mean,
so why would China Times post something that is likely true, but errantly affirmed? Or why would Trump make the claim that Xi made this promise when there was no discussion on it? Which of those don't you understand?
The Trump one's easy. He's going to say whatever he wants to say to make him.
Okay.
Yeah, I told Xi that he needs to stay out of Iran, right?
Because in social media, it's the game of social media to use AI and other tools and bot farms to promote whatever your agenda is, and so few people fact check that it is an effective propaganda tool to say, well, this is proof. My point is true. I'm providing proof. Here's the quote. And the new one is so prevalent now that you can just see bot following bot, is this one where it's Trump or somebody, colon, and then in quotes a statement. And then you have China or Arachi or somebody, and then you have their quote, and then you have the response. You see it all over the place as it relates to America and Iran, or America and China, or Russia and Ukraine. This is the new AI generated imaginary post making
format
process. Format. So I guess you'd have to ask AI, why are you doing it this way? What were you thinking, Mr. AI? Because it's AI that's doing it.
Yeah.
When I look at this image of Trump with his finger out like that, it indicates to me, I gave this guy a good talking to.
Yes, that's Trump's view that Xi, I told Xi what he had to do, and Xi obeys me because I'm Trump. And of course, Z views Trump as one just foul, useless, lying piece of shit. He knows him. All right, boy. Jon Stewart. We've talked about this before, but of course he has the makeup and soft lights, soft filters, and everything else in a beautiful studio to do his show. And when he does his vlog, looking a little weary there. And here he's having a discussion with Fetterman. Fetterman is the Democrat who's in love with Israel and in love with Trump, and just an odd duck. Normally wears sweatsuits, but in this actually has a tie on in his office, and so the deal is they're trying to figure out what in the world is going on, since the Democratic Party is now up to its gills up here in hating Israel, and so if you're a Democrat, which Jon Stewart of course is, you can't understand anything that Israel is doing because, well, you're fed propaganda on Israel and you're fed propaganda on the Muslims who are prompting Israel to respond in that way. So Jon Stewart says, hey, since the ceasefire, they've killed another 1,200 Palestinians. Well, no, John. Or should I call you Mortimer? Are you Stewart or are you school bus? Mortimer school bus. There are no Palestinians, Mortimer school bus. So let's start there. And 100% of Gazans are Muslims. And 100% of the Muslims in Gaza either celebrated or perpetrated the Alaska flood on 10/7/23. And then they collaborated on the torture of Jewish captives. All of them, without exception. And a young person, if you're paying attention there, Johannes school bus, they're indoctrinated at the age of 2, 3, 4, and 5 with knives and automatic weapons and bandanas that say, kill the Jews. So a child Fakistinian is nothing but a jihadist in the making. The problem is Islam. You can't fix it. And that's the problem. It is a death cult. They make babies to go kill. And so, well, Fetterman has a point that, the whole culture is essentially Hamas. It's actually essentially Islamic, and therefore Israel has a real problem trying to defend themselves. And they are doing that. They're trying to defend themselves. Unfortunately, destroying Gaza was counterproductive. But it's impossible to have an intelligent conversation, even with an intelligent man, because he can't process the background information. He has no background. He does not understand Islam. He is completely ignorant on Islam. And as a Marxist Democrat, he's politically a moron as well. And so he just can't figure it out. Of course, this Mario Nafal, who is pro-Fakistinian, you can imagine that he's got a Israeli flag and a Fakistan flag side by side, obviously just trying to fish for followers. He's condemning this because he says that now we know exactly where Fetterman stands. Well, you've always known where Fetterman stands if you're paying any attention. But what you don't know is where Islam stands and where the Gazans stand. That's what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And that the fact that there is no Palestinians. You've just been played for a fool. Mario.
Yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
I can't even imagine the cesspool that is the hallways of Congress up there. It is rat infested. It is, just everything you can imagine bad going on up there. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Washington, D.C. is a real swamp. And I think America is actually in worse shape than Israel. Israel, you've got 20% that are Marxists and they live in Tel Aviv, and you've got another 20% that are Haredi, and they're the parasites in Jerusalem, and there's a suburb of Tel Aviv where they congregate. And in between, you don't have enough Jews to win an election. And in the United States, it's far worse than that, because it's not 20 and 20 on the extremes; it's 40 and 40 on the extremes. And in America, the extremes are far worse. The Dems are avowed Marxists, and the MAGAs are avowed nincompoops. They're Trumpian. So you got 40 and 40 tearing America apart, where you got 20 and 20 tearing Israel apart, but neither country is salvageable.
But you leave out the 20%. Is Rom 20%? I mean, are the Arabs that want to kill the other?
Rom isn't 20%.
80% of okay.
Yeah, but Muslims are 20% of the Israeli population. Rom is the lead party of them, but Rom is the only. They call it an Arab party as opposed to a Muslim party, even though their platform is entirely Muslim. Rom has come to the conclusion that we are Muslims in Israeli society with full rights as Israelis within that society, and have all the benefits and the freedoms and the education and the medical system and everything else of Israelis within that society. We ought not be trying to destroy the society. And so he is considered a moderate, because he realizes, listen, we got 57 Islamic states. Israel can be a Jewish state, and we can live and benefit in this society. And so that's Rom. So that's why I say that Rom is hugely less dangerous to Israel than are the Haredi parties. So if you're talking about forming a coalition in Israel, and you're in that 60% between the wacko left and the wacko religious, you ought not be as concerned about forming a coalition with Rom as you are concerned about forming a coalition with the rabbis and the Haredi. Rom is not trying to destroy the state of Israel. The Haredi are.
Yes. Yeah. Can you imagine 20% of the population being Muslim in the United States? I don't know what those numbers are, but it can't be 10%, right?
It's close to 2%. It's about 2%.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. If it were 20% in the United States, the country wouldn't be habitable. All right. Vivid's my least favorite of all posters, but he says, never forget how Hamas paraded. I see all manner of people there. You have white headbands, which are not Hamas, green headbands, which are Hamas, no headbands, and black headbands. You've got Islamic Jihad, you've got Hezbollah, you've got all different Islamic clubs in that group, non-affiliated Muslims of all kinds. And so this is not a Hamas ceremony. In fact, of these, 2 of the 4 marching were Hamas. The guy that just walked by was not Hamas. Those 3, 4, 5, they're taking the pictures. They're not Hamas. The guy that just walked with your back to you, he was not Hamas. So in a situation like this, the problem that Israel has is they want to blame everything on Hamas. Hamas is nothing but a symptom of Islam. Same thing is true with Hezbollah. The same thing is true with the Houthis, although they dance better than the rest of them. And the same thing is true with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. So long as Israel continues to label their enemies by these clubs, they're going to lose. It's what happened with America when you had the idiot George Bush decide that he was going to go after Al-Qaeda as opposed to deal with the fact that 9/11 was an Islamic attack. And he went to a place where there was no Al-Qaeda, Afghanistan, and another place where there is no Al-Qaeda, and in Iraq. And he made 2 bad situations worse because he had no idea who the enemy actually was. And anytime you go and lash out at symptoms, you're going to make a mess of things. That's what the United States did. That's why there are so many refugees in Europe, because We destroyed Syria, Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, and that's the reason why there are so many refugees. And unfortunately, they brought the disease of Islam with them. So you make things worse when you don't know who your enemy is. And Vivid is one of those who doesn't. And it's pervasive within Israel. So, yeah, and it's true here that, this is the coffins of two babies and their mother. Actually, they had a different person than the pretend mother. They had to find the actual mother later. But that is what they're parading here in these black coffins, is two children that they murdered and a mother that they murdered, that they abducted alive, and then they murdered them. And they're celebrating this. And the world wants to cry for Gaza. And they want to say that genocide in Gaza. Well, I'm going to tell you what genocide is going to be in Gaza. In 7 years, you're going to see a genuine genocide in Gaza. But we're not going to leave. We're just going to all we're going to do is make it, grazable for sheep.
Mm-hmm. Right up to the coast. Yeah, and where did these Hamas guys? Because when I was growing up, it was all Yasser Arafat and the PLO, the Palestinian Pathological Liars Anonymous. And
where Hamas came from is that the PLO was conceived, as I've said, in the 1960s during a meeting between Marxists and Muslims, the Muslim Brotherhood and the KGB, in Cairo, Egypt, and the whole purpose was to relabel the Muslims that had been so rejected in Israel as Palestinians, under this notion that if we call them Palestinians and we call the place Palestine, we will eventually, with propaganda, fool enough people to think that there really is a Palestinian in a place called Palestine. And that was the Muslim Marxist plan. Now, the problem with the PLO is that when they were murderous as a terrorist group, they were very popular among the Muslims in Judea, Samaria, and in Gaza, and even in Israel. And while they had a problem, though, in Israel itself with the Israeli Muslims, because they were the healthiest, wealthiest, freest, best educated Muslims in the world at the time. It's pretty hard for you to get them to go kill the very people that were making that possible. But nevertheless, the propaganda of the PLO, of Marxist Muslims, prevailed, and they turned the beneficiaries of Israel's generosity, and they're being the only non-apartheid country in the entire region, and they turned it into death and terror. And so they began the two intifadas. And at the time, there was only one authorized, popular group, and that was the PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization. Fatah is the PLO; they're one and the same. Black September, PLO. The murderer of Robert F. Kennedy, PLO. The Black September in Jordan, PLO. The Munich Olympic massacre, the PLO. And all the intifadas in Israel, the terrorist and the killing of innocent women and children, the PLO. But after a while, the PLO became too political. They were negotiating with Jimmy Carter. They were negotiating with Bill Clinton. They became perceived as political and money grubbers from around the world, negotiating with the EU and the United States. And the fundamentalist Muslims didn't like that. They wanted the PLO to be a terrorist organization. That's what they wanted. And the PLO stopped being the terrorist organization. They would pay for slay, and they would promote the terrorist organizations, and they would arm the PA to commit acts of terrorism, but they just weren't fundamentalist Muslim enough. And so Islamic Jihad, for example, grew, and Hamas grew as a resistant movement against Israel because of the perceived lack of terrorist credentials of the PLO. So that's where it began. Then it was Benjamin Netanyahu who came up with the harebrained idea, probably in conjunction with Shin Bet and the Mossad. They're all stupid. That if they got funding for Hamas, because he hated the PLO, and if they got funding for Hamas, that particularly in Gaza, they could do away with the PLO, that the Hamas would ultimately in Gaza, with enough money and backing, Hamas would do away with the PLO. So they were the enemy of my enemy. And so that's what they did. And they used Qatar to supply the money. And Hamas not only replaced the PLO, they won a 80 to 85% vote share among the Muslims. They preferred the most ruthless, pure terrorist organization to one that was a combination of terrorist organization and political one. So that's how Hamas grew. That's the history of it.
Unbelievable.
It's kind of I kind of equate that to a wasp nest or an ant hill. You know, you get one started in your yard, and pretty soon you got 2, 3, 4 ant hills and wasp nests, and you're sweating around trying to kill them all, and they just keep growing back.
Yeah, same thing with termite mounds, and they're all interconnected, and they
got
are
tunnels,
pests and
the store stuff.
Yeah, it's just really. I equate it to the thing that I'm frustrated that is almost ubiquitous among people. It's unintended consequences. They don't think of the consequences of their actions. You know, I have shared before this show that I'm unveiling some really amazing insights as to who teams with Yah in the last days. As Yah is the prophet, but who is that last witness, and what does God use him for? What does God have to say about him? And the terms that Yada Yah Isaiah uses are so over the top regarding his and God's affinity for this individual. Your first thing to think is to say, "Oh my, this is not going to turn out well. No one's going to live up to this. You need to tone it down. This is way over the top." And the second thing is, be careful who you share this with until you can validate it. You need to know what the consequence of these things are.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't see in other people, is the willingness to take it all the way through. If you come up with an idea, then you need to play out the scenarios and understand how those scenarios are going to play out and what the consequence is of each statement. And if you don't know the consequence, then you're a train wreck in the happening. And once you start that train wreck, you can't stop it. And that's what Netanyahu has done. And everything over the last 5 years, he has just been a train wreck. It's what the United States is today. It's a train wreck and can't stop it. Unintended consequences.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the enemy of my enemy sounds great
early.
until you realize that, no, it's not great. It's not great.
Yeah, I learned it very early as a child. There was a book that they read me that was read to me was the guy had a problem with ants in his house, right? And then so he needed something to eat the ants, so he went and got a bunch of spiders, and then all of a sudden the spiders took over the house, and so he
needed something to get rid of the spiders and unintended consequences. There's a lovely child's book out too about a man in a tree, a boy in a tree, and how the tree gives everything until the tree is just nothing but a stump, and the man has nothing left. There's a bunch of those that are unintended consequences, and they're told in children's stories, but the adults don't seem to be able to process any of that. Right. It was like what I kept on saying to Israel and Iran: don't attack Iran again. The unintended consequences of attacking Iran are going to be dismal for you. And you can say, I want regime change. I want their missiles gone. I want their nuclear program gone. You can say all of that. But the unintended consequence is going to be you can't get out of this war. And by attacking them again, you're going to guarantee the nuclear bomb that you didn't previously have to deal with. You're going to have to deal with the missiles that wouldn't be fired otherwise. And you're going to get a regime that's worse than the one that you currently have. So that is the consequence.
We can't game plan the absolute best scenario. Let's game plan the absolute worst scenario. What is the worst possible thing that could happen to me if I do this
the most likely scenario. If you go attack Iran, what is the first thing they're going to do? A, they're going to lash back. And B, they're going to close the strait. And, okay, there's this big thing out now that, Trump is about to pull off the ultimate negotiation. He's going to get Turkey, Iraq, and Qatar in an agreement that isolates Iran, and it's going to pull off the greatest coup that's going to reshape the world. And you go, how can somebody be this naive? First of all, Erdogan plays nicely with absolutely no one. No one. Mm-hmm. He's never going to play nicely with anyone. And Iraq was given to Iran. Why do you think they paraded the Ayatollah's body through Iraq? 2/3 of Iraqis are Shia Muslims. We gifted Iraq to Iran. They're not going to be part of a league to support a anti-Iranian regime. No. And with them being 2/3 Shias, they're not going to partner with Turkey. And they have no military of any kind. And you're going to say, all right, well, then Turkey is going to supply all the weaponry. And then you're going to have Kuwait as part of that when the Kuwaitis are men in dresses. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at what happened with the entire estates with flags of the fiefdoms in the Arab side. Mm-hmm. All you have is men in dresses, not one of them having the ability to do anything to protect their own country. Yeah. So what are you going to do? You're going to have you're going to get a unified group of Kuwait and Qatar and United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. Between the group of them, you haven't figured out a way to fire a weapon yet. Mm-hmm. And there are 90 million Iranians, and damn near a quarter of them are trained and armed to fight. And, Kuwait, you got nothing that's going to separate you from them if you piss them off. Mm-hmm. Nothing. You think that, Iraq and Saddam Hussein were bad when they ran through you like you were, heated butter. Wait till you deal with the Iranians. They're like 1,000 times stronger than Iraq. And America can't bail you out this time because America's bases are gone.
Mm-hmm. This fleet will.
What in the world are you talking about? You're going to have an alliance that's going to isolate Iran? All Iran has to do is take out the rest of the refineries and electrical grids and water treatment plants in those countries, and everybody has to move out of them. Mm-hmm. And they have no way to defend themselves.
Iran has been isolated and sanctioned for 40 years. How can you isolate and sanction them more, right? It's
right. And one of the things that people don't recognize, unintended consequence of sanctions. We sanctioned Russia because the United States wanted to destroy Russia using Ukraine as a proxy. And so that didn't go well, so we decided to sanction Russia, make the Ukrainians, give them an easier chance of going off and killing some Ruskies. But what happened is Russia became independent. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, they were buying components, like their airliners were made with components that were manufactured around the world and just assembled in Russia. Well, now they make engines independently, fuselages independently, electronics independently. They're making very modern commercial aircraft and, of course, military aircraft completely independent of the West. Their weapons programs are completely independent of the West. I tried to isolate China through sanctions and through tariffs, and so China has become completely independent of the United States, while the United States is completely dependent upon China. Unintended consequences. We barred Iran from buying any technology that could make a centrifuge, so they developed the technology in-house and can make them all day long. We barred them from importing any technology regarding missiles and drones, so they became one of the most sophisticated countries in the world at homegrown technology and manufacturing for missiles and drones, unintended consequences.
Everybody steals their Shahed drone. Everybody
Of course,
uses it. The Russians
because
use it. The
it's
Canadians.
the best. Yeah, it's the best. And their new hypersonic missile is far better than the Russian version of it. And then you go to the Russians who you stole 300 billion of their money, and then you blocked them from SWIFT, so that you destroyed the credibility of the dollar. You've weaponized the dollar as a reserve currency as opposed to a currency of safety. And the Russians had no desire ever to break that system. They liked trading with the West and had no problem holding dollars until you weaponized them. And the moment you weaponized them, you gave BRICS every reason to form an alternative, and BRICS has done it. Their alternative now is a blockchain currency, but it's not Bitcoin, which is, an imagined fake token. Their currency is 40% backed by genuine gold and 60% backed by 5 national currencies, including the yuan and the ruble. And so it's got 5 currencies that perform 60% of the backing, so it's not nearly as volatile. And 40% of the currency is backed by gold, and the exchange is the blockchain technology that is, 5 decades newer than SWIFT. And so what you've done is you've created the necessity for you to be replaced at a time that you're not inventive and that you're turning the world away from it. It's unintended consequences. You do things like this and you put the world on notice. You can't be, they come up with alternatives, and that's what happened.
Death throes of an empire led by Hasatan himself.
Well, only a fool will fight wars he can't win. Case closed.
Yeah, I would go one step further than that. I don't think there's any war you can win. I don't think anybody ever wins a war.
Ultimately, no.
Yeah, nobody ever wins. You can absolutely lose a war. But, even you go and you say, well, America won the war in Europe against Nazi Germany. No, we didn't. The Russians did. And no, they didn't. They lost 25 million men trying to overcome the aggressive invasion of the Germans and Europeans. And many Europeans joined the Germans in Operation Barbarossa. It cost them 25 million. Russians, that's not winning. We say, well, we won in the Pacific. No. You lost 3,000 people because you were comatose, and you sacrificed another 150,000, avenging the deaths of 3,000. That's not winning. That's being stupid. No, it's there. And since that time, America has just outright lost every war. We lost in Korea, we lost in Vietnam, lost in Afghanistan, lost in Libya, lost in Iraq. Losing badly in Russia. We have lost in Iran. Over and lost in Syria. Every place we go, we lose. Lost to the goddamn Houthis. Cocaine for brains here. This is a younger Zelensky. He was a comedian, not a very good one, a clown, really. Literally a clown. And he ran on the idea that he would make peace with the Russians and not instigate war. And then he became the number one bribe victim of this whole conflict. And it's finally reached the point where the overwhelming majority of Ukrainians want him dead. They don't want him gone. They want him dead. And that was before last night. Last night, the Russians did $5 billion worth of damage to Ukraine. Remember when we saw the Ukrainians hit the Moscow distribution center for the equivalent of Russia's Walmart and set up in flames, and it darkened the skies above Moscow? So now that Ukraine has no interceptors, Russia went into the area around Kiev, but also the remaining port cities in the south, including Odessa. And they decimated every warehouse, every distribution center, every ship, destroyed them all. The Ukraine has no way now to make any money on grain exports. They have no way to import grain or export it. They have no way now to import weapons. They're done. They are completely isolated. And all of the U.S. factories and European factories making weapons, particularly drones in Ukraine, were destroyed in one night. It was $5 billion of damage in one night. Tit for tat.
Oh, that's more than tit for tat. That's a stomping. That is
stomping, but you invited the stomping. It's like, America
yes.
Bombing Iran and then having all 15 of its bases destroyed. That's tit for tat, but it's a stomping. I'll get you that. But cause and effect. How about that?
Yeah, indeed. This.
Yeah, there it is.
It's just insane to watch this.
Yeah, that sound is actually munitions igniting.
Wow.
I mean, they just flat out pummeled it, and that's just one distribution center. They were strategic. They went after every port and every ship that was anywhere near Odessa, and they destroyed them all. Ukraine now is completely isolated. So what's Zelensky going to do? Going to work with the Europeans to send another drone into to Russia and see what the consequence of that is?
No, they're going to land them in Leipzig and hope that the Germans get on board with it and blame the Russians for it. Did you see that yesterday?
Yes.
There's
the
drone at the airport in Leipzig. It was the Russians. It was the Russians. Germany, come save us.
Yes. Yeah, it was. In fact, it was all over the news how the Russians had bombed Poland and that this is that dastardly Putin. We got to go after him. And no, there is nobody in social media that can tell the truth. It is it's a real quagmire, and you still see hundreds and hundreds of posters in social media bragging that Putin has lost, that there's no progress in protecting the Russian ethnic positions in eastern Ukraine, and that line just continues to move west, and there is no stopping it. And they've got Ukraine in a stranglehold. It's just they don't want to destroy Ukraine. They don't want Ukraine. All they wanted was to protect the Russian ethnic areas and to keep Ukraine from being a NATO bastion with missiles right next to Moscow to destroy Russia. So they're in a position right now where you'll have to wonder, okay, so is this Putin's response to the missiles in Russia is to just take down Ukraine so that there's nothing left? I don't know. But one thing I do wish that John McCain and Lindsey Graham were alive to see their plans go up in smoke.
I saw an article a couple of days ago where Putin met with his commanders and he ordered them to change tactics and to ramp it up. To me, it's just a matter of time for Zelensky, whether he winds up like Mussolini or he's able to escape into exile. But I can't see him being around here a whole lot longer. The
last month on the front, and the front is the length of the entire seaboard of the United States. It's a big damn front. That the Russian gains along the front, they've captured more land and more towns and cities in the last month than they had in the last 2 years. So they've been a lot more aggressive on that front, but they've also been a lot more aggressive now in isolating Odessa, making Ukraine a rump state, bombing the railroads and the roads in from Poland to prevent resupply there, and then taking out all of the European and American manufacturing facilities in Ukraine to make weapons. So they have definitely in the last month stepped things up. They've got another month and a half of fighting left, and they'll be in the winter when nobody moves. But they, that since Ukraine no longer has any aerial defenses, they can keep Ukraine pretty well pinned down now with just. In fact, the advantage is that previously they were able to use their hypersonic drones and their high-tech drones to defeat America's Patriot missile systems, because Patriot missile systems can't have no effectiveness on hypersonic drones or even the maneuverable drones that the Russians were using. But those drones and missiles are expensive. But now that they're completely out of Patriot missiles and aerial defenses, Russia can now use inexpensive drones and just beat the living shit out of Ukraine. So they're now completely vulnerable. That's basically what happened to the Arab fiefdoms too. They don't have any defenses anymore.
There was a clip later that you have on here that it was pop, and it looked like it was bombs dropped from a B-52. There were that many of them happening that quick. That it's not. Yeah. It's drones that are hitting like that, and it was like, wow.
Yeah, the Ukrainians are blaming the Russians of using cluster bombs, and by the way, it could well be. I'm not going to say. I mean, the Iranians do, and they use cluster bombs because it's the best way to defeat the interceptors. It's the cheapest way to defeat the interceptors is with the cluster bombs. And so Russia could well be doing that. It would give them more bang for the buck. The idea of committing a war crime now is just so absurd. The UN has no credibility of anything. So you're not going to prosecute a head of state for a war crime. In fact, even this idea that Putin is a criminal because of the orphans, all trumped up in a lie. It's the whole thing is just in the UN is a waste of breath. Anyway, yeah, it's a bad situation for Ukraine, but I've been consistent in saying that this is what's going to happen. My only issue was that the EU was advancing its rhetoric about going to war with Russia, which they have no capability of doing. They don't have an army, they don't have a military manufacturing base, they don't have viable economies. And they don't have the support of their countries to go do that sort of thing. And they'd be destroyed by Russia if they chose to do it. And so they were sending all manner of drones into Russia and damaging refineries and oil depots and other kinds of things, hurting their own economy. And I say, you're going to have to do something because you can't let them continue to do this. And so rather than attack Russia, Europe, I guess his response is that he's going to see if he can get Europe to back down by making the situation in Ukraine look hopeless. We're having, as you know, video issues now. All right, let's see what we got next. All right, this is an interesting report. You actually have to expand it. You can listen to Putin talk, but I don't know if there's anything else there. But there is. This is a very interesting analysis, and it's one of about 5 or 6 posts that I saw today regarding this, where Putin has made the announcement that BRICS has completed and is now using an international trade mechanism, that they did not create this because they wanted to replace the dollar. They did not create this because they wanted to do harm to the United States. They created it because the United States weaponized the dollar, and the United States wanted to do harm to Russia, Brazil, and Iran, and to India, and to China. And so these countries were put in a position where they had no choice. They had to defend their viability, their way of life, their people's right to exist under a situation where the United States was the hegemon of world trade with the dollar and had weaponized the dollar such that you couldn't survive if you didn't come up with an alternative. So they did. And what they recognized is that Bitcoin is not that answer because Bitcoin has no value. So you're dealing with another fiat currency, if you will, that is just imagined. And the only thing that makes Bitcoin different than a fiat currency is that they make a promise that they're not going to make more of them, but all they do is they come up with another version of it, which is the same thing. But there is a method of validating the accuracy and the sender and receiver of funds in BitChain that is really quite good. And so they have taken the science of that and the efficacy of it and have recognized that you can't at this point fund international trade with an entirely gold-backed currency because there's just not enough available gold in the world to have that kind of liquidity. But with all of the gold that Russia and China have purchased, and that countries that will join BRICS like Saudi Arabia and India and Brazil have purchased, that there is enough gold to have a 40% backing of that currency, which is better than a 5% backing by the U.S. fiat currency. And so there's a 40% backing, a commitment never to weaponize it, and blockchain technology and the verification of exchanges and instant notification and validation of those exchanges. It's a vastly better system. And they're using blockchain architecture and a mostly gold-backed currency, with a blend of five niche currencies as the remaining 60% of the value of it, and committing not to use it as a weapon. And you have a pretty good validation of this because China doesn't attack people. And when China does a business transaction with somebody, China's way of doing it is that we'll straight up, here's the deal. We'll get it all written on paper. You can have whatever government you want. You can do whatever you want. But here's our deal. We'll finance this under the following terms. We'll build infrastructure for you, whether it's electric grids, it's mining, it's railroads, it's bridges, it's airports, it's ports. We'll do any of that kind of stuff that you want done, so long as it's our companies that are building it. And that if you pay the loan back with interest, which is low interest rates, but you pay the loan back, it's yours. We built it for you. It's yours. We'll have an agreement that we can continue to use it as partners, but it's yours. And if you don't pay your loan back, it's ours. Fair is fair.
Which is a different strategy than the IMF. Where the interest rates at the IMF are so ridiculous, you can never pay that debt back.
Yeah, and the IMF requires a number of control over your government, and China say, we're not going to control your government. You can do whatever you want in your government. We have no interest because we have everything that we're building. We have the assets to back it, so we don't need to be involved in your government. We do need enough stability that you don't go off and kill our workers. Mm-hmm. That's why Trump was bragging the other day about how Exxon and Mobil were kicked out of Venezuela, and now that Venezuela is the 51st state, they're back and they're making money. And no, they're not. They are not engaged in Venezuela. You can't go and work in Venezuela and not get killed. So no, the whole thing is just a pile of lies. But it's very different in how the United States works. And what happens, like, in the United States, somebody decides, we're going to come up with a different currency for exchange, like Muammar Gaddafi, and he gets killed. The Nigerians say, we're going to come up with a different way to fund our oil sales, and America starts bombing them. Iran says, we want to have some of the proceeds of the oil that's extracted for our land benefit our people. And Jimmy Carter replaces the Shah with the Ayatollah. This is what we do. Mm-hmm. Russians and the Chinese don't play that way. Now, the Soviet Union, when you had Marxists running the country, they did. But today's Russia and China don't play that way. It's going to be very appealing to people to get out of under the yoke of the United States. No central bank to mess with you. Yep. Unintended consequences. Yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine now? This is a rendering of really what happened in Odessa. They have no air defenses now, so Russia can just, even though they're dropping or sending drones and missiles, if Russia wanted to send bombers and just drop dumb bombs, they're now in a position where they could do it. There's nothing Ukraine can do to defend itself. And by the way, the same thing is true to an extent with the fiefdoms with flags around the Persian Gulf. Iran doesn't have an air force, but they can send the Shahed drone, which they can mass produce, and nobody can stop it.
Technology wars is changing fast. And I saw where Russia's also blockaded the Black Sea, so nothing commerce-wise can go or come from Ukraine now through the Black Sea.
Yeah. The only thing that had given Ukraine hope, beside boatloads of money from the West and weapons from the West, was Starlink. It's Starlink that the Ukrainians use to target Russians and to man the battlefields. And so when Elon Musk cries and says, this war has to end and what a tragedy and what a mistake, bullshit. He's up to his eyeballs in it. It's Starlink that is enabling the Ukrainians to kill Russians on the front line. So, no, he's a full combatant.
How much do you get paid to provide military satellite information?
He is paid billions and billions and billions of dollars by the Department of Defense and by the U.S. government. He was talking the other day about trying to salvage what is a sinking ship now, and SpaceX. It should never have gone public because there's nothing that can ever make a profit in SpaceX. There's no place to go, nothing. I mean, there's no hope for SpaceX. And he's got no hope now in Tesla. Tesla is a brick. So to solve that problem, he was talking about the possibility of merging both companies.
It's going to merge an anchor with a rock.
Now I'm going to merge an anchor.
Yeah,
I'm going to merge an anchor with a rock and send it to Mars.
He's also got to worry about SpaceLink a little now. It seems like there's some rumors coming out that Russia's making their own Starlink to compete.
They are. Oh no, they not only rumor, they have one, and so does China. Oh yeah, Russia and China has one. Amazon would have had one had they not blown up their launch pad. The whole purpose of that test was to begin because they've already made the satellites. They were going to distribute satellite after satellite. The satellites have been made. They were designed to go up in direct competition with Starlink, and they blew up their launch pad. But that's not the problem. The space program in China is way in advance of space program in the United States, and Russia's is still very, very adept. But Russia and China have both come up with their own versions of Starlink. And by the way, we use Starlink. You see me going fuzzy here in the video, and we get cut out. Starlink is not a very good product.
No, we are literally. I disconnected the entire network. We are straight into Starlink and still having issues. And still,
with a little bit that we need to send upstream to do this live stream, Starlink can't handle it. And so we had a whole series of meetings this morning to try to figure out what is the option. We need 3 Starlink accounts. We live on an island, so on an island, fiber is not typically an option. And so Starlink is a solution. It's just not a good solution.
Better than pigeons.
Yeah. So this is really a sober assessment of what's going on here. You can open this up, but this is this woman who is a Ukrainian, and she is not so much the picture as what she wrote. I thought that was it. There we go. So she is saying that it was Zelensky who urged Trump to start a war with Iran. Now Iran has no air defense. Ukraine has no air defense missiles. Zelensky was a minuscule part of that. The only reason he wanted it was one voice of go was that Iran and Russia were trading partners, and he has the hate for Russia. So, but was he a significant influence in that? No, I think that Trump was on his own on that. But nevertheless, it is true that Ukraine has no air defense missiles, and when they requested more of them, the United States says can't give you any more, and so they're done. I mean, they're really genuinely done. And it was Zelensky who started striking commercial vessels, ports, oil refineries, and marketplaces in Russia. And unintended consequences, pal. They've got more weapons than you do. And so the Russians have now destroyed Ukrainians' warehouses and blocked grain and fuel exports and imports. Fuel now in Ukraine is $12 a gallon. Sometimes you got to be careful what you ask for. And so she's going down through this list. After Ukraine strikes jeans warehouses in Russia, in one night, Ukraine lost $25 billion. That's a big assessment there. I think it's closer to $5 billion in one night. But she's saying $25 billion in a year, but that's probably realistic. And who's going to give Ukraine money now? Your European grandma? No, Ukrainian phone scammers have already stole it from her. So, she's just going down the list. This is why most Ukrainians want Zelensky dead. The European proxy here is no longer working. They want him dead.
Yeah,
they don't want him out of power.
I think the tap is drying up. They're tired of sending stuff over there now. They see the writing on the wall too.
Yeah, there's nothing left, and to go and strike Russia did not turn out well. To expand the war into Iran did not turn out well. And in the battle of the interceptor and the missile, there's been this guy that has said this now for 5 years. The missile always wins, even when the interceptor hits its target. And now with maneuvering missiles and with hypersonic missiles, the interceptor is about 4% effective. And by using interceptors against cluster munitions and maneuvering missiles and swarms of drones and hypersonic missiles, you have to use 2, 3, 4, 5 per missile, and the cost of the interceptor is 10 to 100 times more than the cost of the missile or the drone. And so you lose even if you hit it. And then you've got the issue that you can make drones and missiles readily and quickly, and interceptors are an exceedingly difficult manufacturing event, so that you can't make them quickly. That's why the Department of Defense says, we can't continue this war with Iran because we're out of interceptors, and we're out of strategic guided missiles and that sort of thing.
That's a lie. That's a lie. We're going to find all those treasonous liars and we're going to put them in prison. That's a lie.
Yeah, we are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had a shouting match with Hegseth 2 days before. Said, "Why did this sneak up on you? Why didn't you tell me in advance that this was the deal?" And then the following day has a tweet that says that it's all a lie, and we're going to find those leakers and we're going to throw them in jail. Well,
traitorous leakers.
Traitorous leakers. Yep, it's becoming a shit show, boys. Here's Trump, unintended consequences. So Trump decides that he's going to sue the BBC, but he has no, it's not like Paramount and CBS and the like, where he can do a deal with his Oracle pals and blackmail them into doing a deal with him and capitulating and giving him money. So with Larry Ellison and his son. The BBC isn't under U.S. regulatory control, so Trump's got no blackmail. So there's no way to get them to fold, but he's so stupid, he thinks he can just cower everybody into submission with a lawsuit. So he slaps on his $10 billion defamation suit against the BBC. And by the way, you can't defame a public figure. So you have 0% chance to win, so he just did it just to be obnoxious. But the BBC, rather than saying we want to throw out the suit, says, great, So you claim that we did $10 billion worth of damage to you. Prove it. We, therefore, have access to all of your financial documents. Disclose them all. And that's what the court ordered. And so Trump's saying, but if I disclose those, I'm going to go to jail. But what am I going to do? Throw a tizzy fit. Heil Trump. Heil Trump.
Seems to me the last place he wants to be is in a British judicial system right now.
Yeah, this is a DM worth reading. Nice job, Dr. Malouf, by the DM. It's Dr. Malouf. He's written, I think, the most succinct piece on the lie that is Abdul el-Said's claim to have been a pro-healthcare Muslim Marxist who is caring for the people as opposed to anything else. And he is on the side of Islam because Islam is right. So he writes, and I'll read this whole thing because it's really beautifully stated. In Abdul al-Shaid's native Egypt, by the way, his father is one of the major contributors to the Muslim Brotherhood. Coptic Christians, which are the indigenous people to the country, are officially treated as second-class citizens, apartheid. And they're under apartheid conditions. They are barred from most forms of employment. They're forced to work as garbage collectors, and they're not even allowed to play sports on the national team. Churches are attacked and bombed frequently. Whole Christian neighborhoods have been set on fire, displacing entire communities. Thousands of Coptic Christian girls and women are kidnapped every year and forced to convert to Islam and to be married to and therefore raped by their Muslim kidnappers. 99% of all women in Egypt have been sexually assaulted. 86% have suffered genital mutilation. Such is the healthcare worker supporting Marxist Muslims. And yet, despite making his entire campaign about Israel, Abdul hasn't criticized Egypt once. He only has a problem with the current military dictatorship in Egypt or the Muslim Brotherhood, and thinks that they are freedom fighters. Strange, huh? That's what you missed, Marxist Muslims. When I tell you that if you are a Marxist, you are a moron, that's what I meant. He just did it very succinctly. That is what Islam does. That is what Israel's up against. Israel is the antithesis of the hell that exists in every Islamic country. Everyone imposes apartheid. Everyone abuses women. Everyone abuses children. Not a single one of them is a liberal democracy. 86% of the women have had their genitals mutilated. 99% of the women have been assaulted sexually. The indigenous population of Coptic Christians have no rights. And you want to attack Israel. And the Marxists that support you in the Democratic Party go, yay!
And want to put
you're
you
a Democrat,
up against
and you're a Marxist Muslim, you are an absolute, utter moron. You know nothing. It's reprehensible that people could claim to be smart and to be so universally stupid. I mean, listen, I'm disgusted by MAGA and by Trump, and he is literally the incarnation of Satan. I understand that. But Democrats, you are worse. And it's hard to say you're worse than Satan, but you are.
Well, politicians play on the ignorant. If you got a whole voting block of people that were smart and actually checked stuff out, that would terrify them.
Oh, of course.
I love the uneducated.
No politics left. Yeah.
That's the Trump line. I love the poorly educated, right?
Yeah. Both sides. That's why God hates it. Yeah, this is actually put out by Trump. So this is put out by Trump. That means that his Ava Braun, his little blonde bedside companion, is the one who creates all these images for him on his tweets. She's the graphic designer. And here she has Trump looking as the 4-star general between the 2 3-stars, MacArthur and Patton. And this, of course, is not even private bone spur. I mean, this is just how disgusting political propaganda is. Of a man that had 6 deferments for Vietnam for imaginary bone spurs, and have him presented as a 4-star general in uniform with the battle ribbons, and having 10 times the battle ribbons that MacArthur or Patton have, with Patton as a 2-star in that picture, and MacArthur as a 3-star, and he's the 4-star. It just shows you just how utterly pathetic MAGA is, and the fact that plays to MAGA tells you everything you need to know about how just reprehensible. America, I mean, you're screwed. You got 40% that are MAGA morons and 40% that are Marxist morons. You've got nothing. I mean, it's 20% in between is nothing. Boy, we're really losing our stream again. So we'll do one more and we'll call it a day. Let's just leave on this one, you know.
This one.
You know, it looks like they're things that went up, the shooting up in the sky there, that those are interceptors of some sort that they're trying to fire up, because they still have some European interceptors. Did you see an interceptor actually explode and hit a target?
No.
Mm-mm.
According to the Russians, on this last salvo, the one last night, there wasn't a single drone or missile that was intercepted. Not one. And this seems to validate that. I suspect it's too late to surrender.
Yeah.
Of the 52 rockets that were going in the last 2 days, 1 connection. 0 for 24 yesterday. 1 out of 25 the day before.
So 1 out of 25 the day before of missiles, and 1 out of 24, 2 days ago, 1 out of 24, and last night, 0 out of 25. But that's just of the missiles. They send in, they don't ever send in missiles alone anymore. That's not the proper strategy. You send in flocks of drones, because the drones overwhelm the systems. So the drones now do as much damage as the missiles do. So would have, with those 50 missiles, there would have been 500 drones.
Yeah, no, there's no surrender. There was never any surrender possible. Putin has gone on record as said the goal is the denazification of Ukraine. That is. Yeah,
well, there was. I mean, before the war began, Russia tried to negotiate a settlement. You know, no NATO and no European weapons and American weapons in Ukraine, and they turned that down. And then when the war began, there was another agreement, take place in Ankara, Turkey, and the Russians accepted it, the Ukrainians accepted it, and then it was Boris Yeltsin and also the United States, Victoria Nuland, that demanded that it be renounced so that the war would continue. And that would have given Ukraine almost all of its original territory. And now there's no basis for a negotiation. Nobody trusts Trump, so he can't intervene. And this, no one trusts any European head of state. No one trusts the non-elected government of Ukraine. So who are you going to negotiate with? There really is no means to negotiate now. And and surrender would have to be unconditional. But who would even surrender to you? Zelensky is no longer an elected leader of that country, and the majority of Ukrainians want him dead. So, anyway, Roger, thank you. Tough news, man. The world is falling apart. But we correctly assessed that we were entering the time of troubles. That it began now 2.5 months ago. It's going to progressively get worse, and it's really gotten bad for Israel. And Israel hasn't even seen a fraction of what's going to occur over these next 7 years. It's going to be devastating for the vast majority of people, and completely devastating for everyone who's religious, political, anti-Semitic, conspiratorial, patriotic. You're done. You've got 7 more years to drool and vomit, and then it's all over for you. God has reached his limit, and he's going to impose the plan that he has in place, and you're going to watch and listen to what happens when Satan is in control of the most powerful nation on earth, and Donald Trump, and it's going to be devastating. So we can do the vlog. We can warn you about it. We can tell you where to go for answers, yadayah.com. I hope you read. And if you don't read, the books will talk to you. So there you go. So thank you, Roger. Thank you for your continued contribution to the family page of the Yahowah blog. And when are we going to get the family page up on the site so that it's direct link from the header?
I have to talk to Joe. I'm not the guy for that. Every time I go into the feeds page, there is more and more pages being built. So, when Joe's happy with it, then we'll get something. So it's
Also, when you're talking, the blog page can be fed from X, where we're keeping X current. We're not keeping Facebook current for 2 reasons. One is Facebook has become really impossible to deal with now. You can violate a Facebook rule by responding to a lie that they send to you in the feed. When you say what you just sent me in this feed is untrue, they will violate you for pointing out that the lie they sent you is untrue. So it's just dysfunctional, and they won't allow us to take things that we posted there and put them on our site without some executive sign off. So they're just not worth it. But originally he had X in that feed too. So we just need to go back to using X. X is worthless in terms of communication because the people that you sign up to hear from and follow, you never hear from. Grok decides what you're going to see, not what you've chosen to see. And Grok's an idiot. And then your posts are not distributed to those who've chosen to follow you, but based upon what Grok thinks. And if you're anti-Musk and anti-Trump and anti-religion and anti-conspiracy and an antagonist towards anti-Semitism, you got no place on X. And so no one's going to see what you've posted, and you're not going to see what you want to see. So it's worthless, but they'll leave you alone if you're just going to use the X channel for nothing but what we're using it for here, which is to create a vlog on a blog. But so thank you, gentlemen. We'll be back with another episode. We may be able to finish the Ruth story. And I think we'll end up going to volume 4 of Coming Home, which is what I thought I had finished and edited and superscripted, and well, now I have a whole new chapter that I'm in the midst of adding, and we'll see how that goes over the next few days. But we may end up switching the basics program to Bashar Herald by Friday. So we'll see how it plays out. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yep.